Entramos, listo, vas a empezar tú.
Listo.
Okay. So you can hear me and see me and we're all set, right? Okay. How will you know if your guests have arrived back?
Okay.
The video is frozen now for me. I don't know.
Estamos de vuelta, una excusa a todos los asistentes de Generación Consciente, un pequeño problema de Teams, pero ya estamos otra vez acá y nos quedamos en la presentación de Bob Chapman, que, como yo contaba, la mejor persona para presentarlo pues es la persona que ha escrito un libro con él, que es Raj. Raj, please, again, say hello to Bob.
Okay, now Bob, I can see you, but it's frozen. I hope you can hear me. Can you let me know?
I can hear you and see you well.
Okay, okay. So again, just to reintroduce Bob, I got acquainted with Bob some years ago and found out about his philosophy of leadership and business. It's an amazing story. We wrote the book Everybody Matters together in 2015, I think. And it was a very different context for conscious capitalism. This is industrial manufacturing businesses. And what it taught me is that this shows that you can apply these ideas into any kind of business. You don't have to be a Google or a Whole Foods or a Starbucks or a container store, that this works because it's rooted in humanity. And that is really what Bob's journey is about. And he has shown it to work about 120 times now. They've bought over 120 struggling and dying businesses and turned them around. And so there's a lot we can learn about how do you create a people-centric culture and how do you take a business that everybody thought had no future and give it a future. So Bob, thank you for making time. Sorry for the technical challenges, but welcome. And so I wanted to start by asking you about your journey, because you were, I would say, a more traditional business leader. You went to business school for undergraduate and graduate. You stepped into your business that your father was leading at the time, and you pretty much ran it by the numbers, right? But then what changed?
Yeah, well, again, for your audience, I have a very traditional business education, accounting undergraduate and an MBA from the University of Michigan, and I went into public accounting before joining the company. So very traditional education. And my first 20 years of my experience was very traditional, you know, acquiring companies, cutting costs, improving businesses, so very traditional management. And again, just for your audience, I have learned that the word management means the manipulation of others for your success. Okay, that is what and so I don't like the words we use in English, management, bosses, super. I like leaders, mentors, and coaches. That's transformation. So yes, very traditional beginning, starting to acquire companies to give us a future. Matter of fact, I'd say to your audience, one of my last visits to Colombia was with Cervecería Bavaria. It was one of our largest clients. We had a license agreement in Medellin, and I very much enjoyed the people of Colombia when we were serving Bavaria in the very early days of our history.
And so, Bob, what started to change? What caused you to look at the business and look at people in a different way?
I want three things. First of all, in 1997, I acquired a company in South Carolina, about a $50 million business. It was a very important acquisition for me. I flew down to be there the first day, and I was having a cup of coffee in the lunchroom, and nobody knew me and I didn't know them. So I was just observing behaviors of people, which I enjoy. And it was in America in March, they have March Madness when people bet on basketball games. So everybody's talking about what team won last night, what college won, etc. And they're having fun. And the closer it got, I observed, the closer it got to 8 o'clock, you could just see the fun go out of your body. So my first transformation that day in hindsight was, why can't business be fun? Why do we leave work to have fun? Why can't we have fun at work, playing the sport of business? So that was the first transformation that opened my mind to the power of what we could be. And the second was, I was at church with my wife, we're Episcopalians, and my mentor was the rector of our church. And I said to Cynthia one day after a sermon, a great sermon that inspired me, I said, Cynthia, Ed, the rector of our church, only has us for 1 hour a week. We have people in our care for 40 hours a week. We are 40 times more powerful to influence people's lives than the church. So I walked out of church that day with my second revelation, said business could be the most powerful force for good in the world if we simply learn to care about the people we had the privilege of leading. That was the second. But the one everybody remembers, Raj, as you know, is at a wedding. A friend of mine was walking his daughter, and I'm sure many of your audience have done this. Very precious moment as you walk your daughter down the aisle, and everybody's so excited how beautiful she looked, how proud the father was. And when she got to the altar, he said, her mother and I give our daughter to be wed to this young man, and he sits down next to his wife as the ceremony continues. And my mind goes to a different place. And I said, look, as a father, that's not what he wanted to say. That's what he was told to say. What he wanted to say was, look at young man, my wife and I have brought this young lady into this world. She's given her all the love and care we can give her so she can be who she's intended to be. And we expect you, young man, through this marriage to continue helping her be who she's intended to be. Do you understand that, young man? And then my mind went to the ultimate place. And all of a sudden I thought about our 12,000 people that work for us around the world. And I said, because before that wedding, I saw people as engineers, accountants, production workers, hourly workers, salaried workers, direct reports. That day, I realized that the people who work for us around the world are not positioned. They're somebody's precious child, just like that young lady and young man in that ceremony. And their life has been put in my care. It changed everything for me to now start looking at the people I had the privilege of leading as somebody's precious child. That is the piece of my journey that has been so people can relate to so easily, because when you look at people not as how they serve your needs, but you look at people as how you can meet their needs, and you look at them as somebody's precious child, it changes everything.
Mm. Wow. And then Bob, you also had a story where there was an employee who said to you that my wife speaks to me now. You know, now that you've made the changes. Can you tell that story as well?
Acquired a $200 million company in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And we went up there, and we had, after 2 or 3 months after we had acquired it, and I had a group of people having a listening session. I said, how is it going? How are we treating you? How are we doing? And the young man raised his hand and he said, Mr. Chapman, my wife is talking to me. And I said, I don't understand. He said, Mr. Chapman, I worked at this company for 30 years before you acquired it. I came in every day. I punched a card to validate that I was here. I went to my workstation. I was told what to do, but nobody ever asked me what I thought. I got 10 things right, and I never heard a word. And I got one thing wrong, and I got my ass chewed out. And I realized, Mr. Chapman, that when I went home at night, I didn't feel very good about myself. And when I got home at night not feeling good about myself, I wasn't very nice to my wife. Since you've acquired this company, since you've allowed my voice to be heard, since you've allowed me to contribute to the future of the business and respect my opinion, I realize now when I go home at night, I feel better about myself. And when I feel better about myself, I'm nice to my wife. And when I'm nice to her, she talks to me. I said, we're going to have a new metric. And the new metric is going to be the reduction in the divorce rate in America. It never occurred to me before that day that the way we ran our business would affect people's marriage and the way they treated their kids. But I will tell your audience today that without a question of a doubt, and again, we have 12,000 people, we've been on this journey 15 years, the biggest feedback we get from our leadership initiatives is not how they run a better accounting department or sales department. The feedback we get is how it improved their marriage and their relationship with their children. And so it never occurred to me that my leadership would affect people's personal lives. And that's one of the biggest lessons we learned, is the way we lead our companies affects the way people go home and treat those in their span of care. And that was profound.
Raj, you're mute. Out of the way.
Yeah. So one of the things that struck me, Bob, when I first visited, when I was put into a room of about 15 men, and you left, and I was just trying to learn what had happened, what the story was, what was the culture. And I asked them a simple question. I said, tell me how your life used to be, and then tell me how it changed after your company got acquired by Barry Wehmiller. And then there's silence in the room for a long time. And then I see that three or four of the men actually have tears in their eyes, and they have tears running down their face. And I said, wow, I asked a very simple question, and why are there people in tears? And then one of them started speaking, describing his life before the acquisition. He would get laid off periodically every few years. He didn't know how long he would be laid off for. And there were times when he had a new baby and he couldn't buy milk for the baby. He had to literally go to the Green Bay Packers game and pick up aluminum cans and bottles and return them to get some money. His life was really miserable, and he was, of course, not treated with any respect or dignity. He said, now my life has completely changed, completely turned around. And I said, if you can get middle-aged blue-collar men to cry in front of each other, there's something powerful going on in this company, which is highly unusual. So I think you've created a culture where people are free to be human, they are able to be vulnerable, and they display genuine care for each other. And that's really extraordinary.
And Raj, as you know, the way we do that, because when we realized that we had been blessed with the leadership model that could profoundly change the world, the way we are intended to live and work together, where we cared for each other and felt valued when we returned home, we decided we needed to teach. You can't ask a manager to be a leader. You have to teach him. And so we developed teaching content based on 3 foundations. One is empathetic listening. The biggest thing we've learned in this journey is the greatest skill of leadership, the greatest skill in your personal life, is the ability to listen with empathy to those you have the privilege of having a relationship with. And so the first class you have to take to become a leader is to listen, which is just the opposite of what I was taught and what I learned. I thought leaders told people what to do because we were smarter and we had the power to do it. It turns out leaders engage people and ask them what they think we ought to do, which validates their worth, engages them in, and sends them home fulfilled. So we teach people empathetic listening in our class. The second thing we teach, that came from Cynthia and my raising 6 kids, is we teach recognition and celebration. How do you let those people in your span of care know that they matter? And so we look for the goodness in every organization and we hold it up and we recognize it. So we're constantly focusing on good things in our company and holding it up, and teach people how to do that thoughtfully in a caring way. And finally, we teach a culture of service. A culture of service means, how do we seize the opportunity to serve others? Simon Sinek and I have an expression: we imagine a society where people think of others first, okay? Because in my business education, Raj, it was always about me and my success. I was never taught to care for others. I was taught success, happiness is money, power, and position. And so that is the transformation. Those 3 things are the key to how we transform managers who manipulate people to leaders who care for the people they have the privilege of leading.
Yeah. Bob and Raj, I'm going to ask you just a moment if we're going to try to normalize, to fix Bob's camera. There seems to be a problem because I think we all want to see Bob. So just hold on a few seconds. And if you can do that, it will be great. And Bob, if you could get a little bit closer to your computer, or if you had headphones, just like to increase a little bit the volume of your voice.
I can get closer, okay?
Okay, that's beautiful, thank you. Le he dicho a Bob y a Raj que vamos a tomarnos un segundo para tratar de arreglar la cámara de Bob de manera que todos los asistentes puedan verlo también a medida que nos explica lo que ha hecho en su vida y con sus compañías y las cosas que ha descubierto en ese camino.
I'm live again, right?
Yeah, now we can see you.
Okay, so I had to turn the camera off and turn it on again.
Okay, now we can see you, Bob.
Right.
Please, Raj, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so you were talking about the recognition and celebration. I got to attend one of those, and Bob is he's a car buff generally, so he loves to buy nice cars, and then they decided to use those cars to recognize people, and that's really become a big tradition in the company.
Yeah, so we have these events where we look for the goodness in people, hold it up, and then we recognize them in front of the organization. It is profoundly meaningful. And so our recognition events where we stop and we pause to recognize Mary in accounting, or Bill in engineering, or Fred in production, we recognize, and they are nominated by their peers for their goodness, not their achievement, for their goodness, their character, who they stand for. And we have these events and we surprise the winner and we give them a car to drive for a week. But the powerful thing I want to share with you is these recognition events, which were just kind of a spontaneous idea. We read the qualities of the person who won before anybody knows. And then all of a sudden we say, Mary, would you come forward and receive the keys to the car? So as Mary walks forward, she starts crying because she can't believe she's picked out of 400 people to be recognized. But as Mary's walking forward, her husband, her 2 kids, and her brother-in-law step out from behind the stage to see Mary recognized. And everybody gets tearful, and it's a profoundly meaningful event. It's like throwing a pebble in a lake and seeing the waves. This is a profoundly important thing. We constantly are looking for the goodness in people and holding it up and saying, thank you. And it's not from the leadership team, it's from peer to peer. And people tell me it's the most profound recognition in their life. For why? Because it's from their peers who they work with that they had no idea they believed that. Number 2, they call their spouse to tell them they won. And number 3, because I give a car to drive for a week, they say they take their mother for a ride. Okay, and I'm always amazed. So I've interviewed hundreds of these people that won it. So why is it the most significant? Because it's from their peers who they had no idea. That was profoundly meaningful. And they call their spouse to tell them they won, but they really call their spouse to say, you are incredibly lucky to be married to me because I just got nominated for my qualities. And why do they take their mother for a ride? Because in many societies, our mothers are our source of goodness. Not in every, but in many cases, people say, I took my mother for a ride. What they mean is they went back to their source of goodness to say, you know, Mom, I turned out okay. They don't say that. They take the car to take their mother for a ride. One lady actually told me that she drove the car to the cemetery to show her mother who had passed away that she got that recognition. So in the DNA of our culture that is now being taught at Harvard and studied around the world, the foundation is looking for the goodness in people and holding it up and saying, thank you, okay?
So Bob, this company has been around about 130 years. And it was really struggling for most of that time, almost went out of business many times. I know that when you stepped into the CEO role, they were losing money and they were struggling every year. How are you doing financially now that you've changed the culture?
Well, this is an important point because you could say, well, I could be nice if I wasn't focused on profit. Our share price has gone up 14% a year, compounded for 25 years. Okay, 14% a year, compounded for 25 years. And our largest investor is the Walton family that owns Walmart. And they consider this investment the one they compare others. So you can create human value and economic value in harmony. They're not in disharmony. They're actually in harmony. Because remember, in America, the statistics are 3 out of 4 people are disengaged in what they're doing. And 88% of people feel they work for an organization that does not care about them. And when we don't do this to improve productivity, we do it because it's somebody's precious child and they deserve to be treated that way. But what we found is, it's a little bit like Ferrari, the famous car company, designing the most perfect engine in the world. But if you don't put the right premium fuel, that engine will never perform to its potential. Our business model is our engine that is designed beautifully. Our culture is the premium fuel that allows that engine to perform at its optimal value. So it's a combination of a great business model, a robust business model, that's been tested in the 08-09 economic downturn when our share price went up 11%. And in the COVID environment, our share price just went up 14%. So our business model that is designed to protect our people in good and bad times has stood the resiliency of 2 of the worst economic shocks in my lifetime. And that's very important to me because a leader's responsibility is to give those people in your care, those precious lives in your care, a grounded sense of hope for the future.
Well, Bob, as I've told you, you were the original inspiration for my book, The Healing Organization. And I remember the particular conversation. It had been a couple of years since we had met, and I asked you how you were doing. And you said, oh, we're looking at about 10 or 12 acquisitions this year. And at that point, you had 108 companies that you had bought. And I said, Bob, I need to understand your motivation. You already bought 108 companies. I know you have 26 children and grandchildren. I know you have all these beautiful homes and properties, and you could be just enjoying your life. Like you're running around all over the world, looking at companies and working extremely hard. So I said, why do you need to do all this? And I'll never forget what you said. You said, Raj, I don't know how much time I have left. And on my deathbed, I will not be proud of the machines we built or the money I made. I will be proud of the lives I touched. And I said, Bob, you're not growing a business. You're spreading a healing ministry. It's like when Bob Chapman comes to town, people have a sense of hope. If a company is being acquired, like say 3G Capital out of Brazil, if they acquire a company, life is going to get tough and it's going to get grim and they'll lay off a bunch of people and, it's just going to get very hard. If Bob Chapman acquires your company, you know that your children have a future, you have a future, your town has a future, and there's respect and dignity, and it's a healing effect. So that was the original inspiration for me, that the world gets better the bigger your company grows. And that's not always true of all companies. There are some companies, when they grow, the world actually does not get better. So I want to ask you, what do you see? Our world needs a lot of healing, obviously, today. And what do you see as the role of business in our society to bring about the kind of healing that we need?
I have asked myself that question many times, Raj, because I feel this unbelievable humbleness of having been called to show the world how business could be a powerful force for human value, not just economic value, okay? And human value means sending people home each day, feeling that who they are and what they do matters. And so, one of the issues in our society, in American society, our education system was created so we could have a free society with informed citizenry. But the Industrial Revolution came along and we needed skills. We needed engineers, scientists, marketing people, lawyers. So our universities became skills factories, okay? We sent people out with skills, but we didn't send them out with human skills. We gave them technical skills. And so we have created through the Industrial Revolution this economic engine, but not a human engine, okay? And so what we need desperately, and again, as you know, Raj, I get a chance to talk all over the world in all parts of society, not just business, healthcare, education, the military, government. I speak to all the audience, and I see it everywhere. What we are not creating in our universities is leaders who have the capacity and the skills to care for the people they lead. And so so we're creating managers, bosses, and supervisors, and our society, prior to the pandemic, America's society was the strongest I've ever seen. We had the lowest unemployment in 50 years, the highest stock market, and the greatest outlook, okay? Yet we had the highest level of depression and anxiety. I thought our purpose was peace and prosperity for those citizens of our country. Well, we had peace and prosperity, and we had record levels of depression, anxiety, people, 88% of people working for companies. Why? Because we never created in our universities leaders who had the skills and the courage to care for the people they lead. And so it's very important for us that we perform financially, because otherwise people will say, you're kind of like a nonprofit bot. It only makes sense that those people in our care, that we care about them, that we want them to contribute at the highest level towards our vision, and we want to send them home each night feeling valued so they can be good to their spouse, good to their children, and we can start healing. Because again, we have had economic prosperity, but we have not had human prosperity. And so Thomas Friedman wrote an article recently, given this situation, in the New York Times that really is elegant. He said, what we have in America, and really in the world, is we don't have a poverty of money, we have a poverty of dignity, okay? And so we have the chance, all those on the call today, we have a chance to heal the world by simply caring for the people we have the privilege of leading. Some people say you need to get the right people on the bus when you hire people. I say you need to build a safe bus, which is your business model. And then you need drivers who know how to drive that bus and drive it safely. And then anybody that gets on the bus, which are your team members, are going to be fine. So our focus is a robust business model. This is the primary foundation of stewardship, and leaders who know where they're going and how to get there. And so we can take people to a good place. So that is our focus. And again, actually, the acquisitions we've done around the world, it is now becoming a factor. Many of the companies we now acquire pick us because of our culture. They want the people who they've been in care of to be a part of a company that cares about them. It's amazing how many times I see people when we acquire a company and I tell them, welcome to the family, let's go do good things together. They cry. Why do they cry? Because they say, I never thought I was going to get to work for a company that cared about me. And that's what we do. We care about the people we have the privilege of leading.
There are many things I learned from you in the process of writing that book, and one of those was the idea of courageous patience.
Yeah.
Give people a sense that we have time. Otherwise we're always feeling this tremendous pressure. So of course there's a book, Everybody Matters. Bob has a TEDx talk, and he's all over. There's lots and lots of information that you can get. I would like to now open it up to questions from the audience. So Jorge, if you would facilitate that.
Yes, of course. Bob, tenemos ahora un espacio de 10 minutos para preguntas para Bob. Si quieren hacerlas en el Q&A, en preguntas y respuestas, lo pueden hacer ya. There is this question, Bob, from Carolina. She wants to know how has Barry Way Miller handled the COVID crisis in the different states and countries? How have you taken care of your employees in this crisis?
Well, we have, again, our company is stronger in COVID because we serve basic industries. So actually our business is performing very well, okay? But I give video updates frequently to everybody, letting people know our primary focus is their safety and health. But remember, it's not just about COVID. Their safety and health has to do with how, even in a vibrant business, because people don't feel safe in businesses. So we focus on safety. We have gotten through this. We've certainly had, I think, 200 incidents around the world and 12,000 people. We've had a few plants shut down for a period of time. But in America and most countries in the world, we have been able to operate our businesses. Many of our offices, some level of people are still remote. But our primary focus is the men and women in our care. And this COVID crisis tested our business model, and it tested our resolve to care for people, and we have come out of it again strong. I always say if Ford's going to build a new truck, they drive it into the worst terrain they possibly can, the models, to make sure the chassis, the engine hold up. Drive your business model into 08-09 crisis, drive it into the COVID crisis. How did it perform? Our business model performed well in both, which validated the safety of the bus we have created, which gives people are not worried about being laid off, downsized. And we respect everybody's dignity on how they deal with it, their family situation, and we're going through this strong. It's a further validation of our culture.
Bob, they would like to know also, what is your advice for a CEO who wants to create a people-centered culture like you did at Barry Way Miller? How should they start? What should they do first?
Well, I would say to you that, as Raj says, I want to tell your listeners that what caused us to write the book, to invite Raj to help us write the book, which he was phenomenal on, was that we had people from McKinsey, Harvard, Stanford, Simon Sinek, people walk in and everybody said, in a manufacturing plants, I have never seen anything like this, as Raj said. And so one day, Bill Urey of Harvard, who wrote a book called Getting Yes, said he saw the answer to world peace in our company because he saw a place where people genuinely care for each other. So I would say to you, we decided that, again, I'm an accountant with an average intelligence. There's no way I came up with these ideas. We believe some higher power is just simply using us to show the world the way we were intended to work together. So we have done several things. We have created a leadership institute. And for example, American Airlines is one of our largest clients. We're helping companies who the CEO has been awakened. Okay. And again, how did American Airlines join us? He heard me give a speech and he said, would you come and speak to my leadership team? And American Airlines embraced it. There's a 75,000 person food chain that embraced it. Shell Oil Company in Amsterdam, we gave a talk. So we are looking for people who believe what we believe and want to join us. And we have, it's called Chapman & Co. Leadership Institute that anybody can look up on the internet. And we give virtual classes, we teach it. We don't believe this is ours. We believe this, we need to share this with the world so we can begin healing the world. So you can read the book. The book was meant to be kind of the hero's journey, as Raj described. How did I transform myself? And then how do we do it? So you can read the book. It's in Spanish. You can go to the internet and get it in Spanish or English. You could. I would suggest you take my animated TED Talk. It's on the internet, and have a group of executives look at it and say, is this something we're interested in? Because it's animated, it's really powerful, it's only like 8 minutes long. So they took my TED Talk and animated it and say, is this something we believe we can do? If so, I would then read the book or watch some of the videos. And then I would contact our Leadership Institute, because we are trying to share this with people who believe what we believe and want to join us in this healing journey. So business becomes a powerful force for good in the world. My hope in my lifetime is this becomes a movement in the world to use business for good, so we can start healing instead of destroying families by using people for financial gain.
Okay, Guillermo would like to know this. How can we know that we have managed to take care of the people who are part of our business, of our organization?
Great question. Great question. I will tell you what I do. This is just what I do. I don't do surveys. I fly around the world and I sit down with groups of people. You know, could be somebody in the plant, somebody in the office like Raj did. And I say, these are our values. They're called our guiding principles of leadership, where we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. And I say, this is we believe. How are we doing? Tell us how we can be better stewards of your life. And so I listen to them. And we constantly are trying to improve our stewardship of the 12,000 lives around the world. So I have listening sessions where I engage. Now, because of COVID, the 15 years I've been doing this, I'm now doing it with sessions just like this. And we're connecting people in China and India and Serbia and Italy and France. And it's powerful. Listening to your people, but you have to have a foundation that you share with them, which is our guiding principle of leadership. This is what we believe in. We want to send you home fulfilled. How are we doing? And we listen to them. So that's how we know. And it's how do you know that your wife loves you or your husband loves you? Okay. It's not easy to measure, right? Okay. But sometimes just sitting down and listening to them is the key to understanding how your behavior affirms your affection for them. So I am constantly doing listening sessions now by Zoom, and it is powerful. People feel heard. They feel valued, and it affirms our belief. And it's a journey of continuous improvement. We will never be perfect, but we'll strive always to be better.